Young African-American girl assists wealthy businessman repair his Corvette. When he notices the pendant on her neck, his entire world is turned upside down. The ruthless afternoon heat made the pavement of the country road shimmer as Zoe Williams walked home from school. The 10-year-old girl slowed when she spotted the gleaming blue Corvette ZR1 stopped on the shoulder, its hood raised like a gaping maw. A white man in an expensive suit that probably cost more than her family's monthly rent paced nervously beside the vehicle, shouting into his phone. "I don't care what the towing fee is. I've been stranded on this empty road for over 2 hours. I have an appointment with the senator in—" The man glanced at his platinum watch. "Less than 3 hours, for crying out loud." Zoe debated whether she should continue walking. Her Aunt Tasha always warned her not to speak with strangers, particularly those who seemed out of place in their modest rural community, a predominantly African-American neighborhood 2 hours from Chicago. But something about the man's desperate frustration made her pause. If this story of unexpected connections and hidden secrets has captured your interest, make sure to subscribe to discover how a simple pendant becomes the key to unlocking a web of power, prejudice, and revelations that will transform lives forever. Zoe adjusted her worn backpack containing her school books and, more importantly, the compact toolkit her Uncle Marcus had given her. A skilled mechanic who believed everyone should understand basic engine mechanics. "Excuse me, sir," Zoe called, approaching cautiously. "Need some help with your car?" Thomas Reynolds, CEO of Reynolds Industries and owner of numerous Chicago commercial properties, turned in surprise. The annoyance on his face quickly transformed to condescension when he saw the small figure with colorful braids, faded shorts, and a Northwestern University t-shirt that swallowed her small frame. "That's sweet of you, honey. But this is a high-performance vehicle. I need a professional mechanic." Zoe shrugged, stepping closer to look under the hood. "My uncle runs a garage and has taught me about cars since I was tiny. I can at least take a look." Before Thomas could object, she had already dropped her backpack and was examining the engine with unexpected confidence. "When did the problem start?" she asked, all businesslike. Thomas sighed, realizing he had little to lose. "The engine began overheating about 40 minutes ago, then just died." "Did you notice a sweet smell? Like syrup?" Thomas blinked, surprised. "Yes, actually." "How did you know?" "Cooling system." Zoe pointed to a small puddle beneath the car that Thomas hadn't noticed. "It's leaking coolant. That's why it overheated." As she spoke, Thomas observed the girl with growing curiosity. There was something oddly familiar about her, the way she slightly furrowed her brow in concentration, how her intelligent eyes methodically examined the engine. "What's your name?" he asked suddenly. "Zoe. Zoe Williams." She extended her hand, now smudged with grease from her inspection. He hesitantly shook it. "Thomas Reynolds." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Reynolds. I think I can fix this temporarily." Zoe opened her backpack and removed a small metal case. "Uncle Marcus makes me carry an emergency kit. You never know when someone might need roadside assistance." Thomas watched, fascinated, as the girl worked with impressive skill, finding the leak in the radiator hose and applying special tape. "This should hold until you reach town," she explained. "But you'll need to add water to replace the lost coolant." It was when Zoe raised her hand to brush hair from her face that Thomas noticed it. A pendant with a sapphire blue stone set in vintage silver, secured with thread wrapped around the base to keep it from slipping off her small neck. Thomas's world seemed to freeze. The sun glinted off the stone, revealing an internal pattern he would recognize anywhere. A distinctive star-shaped inclusion. A pendant he had given 12 years ago to a little girl named Zoe at a children's home called Bright Horizons, days before it was mysteriously shut down. "That pendant," Thomas began, his voice suddenly shaking. "It's quite unusual." Zoe glanced down. "It was my mother's. My adoptive mother, Elaine. She passed away last year." A shadow of sadness crossed her face. "She said it represented an important promise." "May I ask where Elaine got this pendant?" Zoe shrugged. "She never told me exactly. She just said it belonged to someone important, and that someday I would understand its significance." Thomas tried to compose himself, offering to drive Zoe home as thanks. She hesitated briefly before accepting. During the short drive, Thomas asked seemingly casual questions about her life, her school, how long she'd lived there, who she stayed with since her adoptive mother had died. "I live with my Aunt Tasha and Uncle Marcus," Zoe explained. "They took me in after Elaine died." "Have you always lived here?" Thomas asked, keeping his voice casual while gripping the steering wheel tightly. "Since I was 3. Before that." Zoe paused. "Elaine didn't talk about it much. I know I was adopted from a children's home called Bright Horizons. It closed shortly after." Thomas nearly swerved off the road. "Bright Horizons? You're certain?" "Yes. Why? Do you know it?" Thomas took a deep breath. "I did, a long time ago." As they approached a modest but well-maintained house, Thomas stopped the car. Zoe thanked him and said goodbye. But before she could exit, he handed her a business card. "Zoe, if you ever need anything at all, please call me." The girl accepted the card curiously and climbed out. Thomas watched as she ran toward the house, the pendant gleaming in the sunlight. His hands trembled as he phoned his private investigator. What Zoe couldn't know as she waved one last time to the stranger in his luxury car was that this chance meeting had just triggered events that would reveal secrets hidden for more than a decade. Secrets linking a multi-million-dollar empire, a mysteriously closed children's home, and an African-American girl with an extraordinary ability to repair broken things. Thomas spent 3 sleepless nights staring at enlarged photos of the sapphire pendant his investigator had captured, the jewel he had given little Zoe at Bright Horizons as a promise to return for her, a promise never fulfilled. In his office at Reynolds Industries, he studied documents scattered across his desk. 12 years ago, his father, Richard Reynolds, had purchased the Bright Horizons property for a fraction of its value, citing financial irregularities. Coincidentally, Thomas was named CEO shortly afterward. "Mr. Reynolds, Mr. Phillips from Legal is here with the Pinnacle Project documents," his assistant announced. The Pinnacle Project, a luxury development under construction exactly where the children's home once stood. Thomas quickly tucked the reports away before Phillips entered. "The Bright Horizons acquisition files are here," Phillips said, "though I don't understand why we're revisiting old business." "My father was quite particular about preserving these records." "Your father is retired in Arizona," Thomas replied dryly, "and I run the company now." Examining the documents, Thomas discovered suspicious bank transfers and, more disturbingly, a list of children who had been relocated when the home closed. Zoe Williams's name was circled in red with a notation: "Special case. Contact RR." His investigator Johnson called with news. "I found Elaine Williams. Car accident last year. Brakes failed. Suspicious circumstances." "What about the adoption records?" "Missing officially. Zoe Williams never existed at Bright Horizons." "Find out everything about her current family," Thomas instructed. Meanwhile, Zoe was working in the small workshop behind her aunt and uncle's house. The space was her sanctuary. Tools organized on walls, the comforting scent of oil and metal. "Did you fix the vintage radio?" Marcus asked, entering the workshop. Zoe smiled, lifting the 1950s radio. I did. Just had to reconnect a few wires. Marcus affectionately ruffled his niece's braids. You have a gift, kiddo. I've never seen anyone understand machines like you do. Uncle, do you think my mom would be proud? Elaine was incredibly proud of you, bursting with it. Zoe twisted the pendant on her neck. I met a wealthy man yesterday. His car broke down and I fixed it. He recognized my pendant. Marcus froze. What man? Thomas Reynolds. He gave me his card. Zoe showed them the card. He acted strange when he saw my pendant. Marcus's face paled. He exchanged glances with Tasha, who appeared at the doorway. Zoe, sweetheart, Tasha said tensely. Remember when we promised to tell you the truth about Elaine when you were older? I think that time has come. That night, Zoe heard the concealed story. How Elaine, a nurse at the children's home, had fled with her when the facility suddenly closed. How they had changed identities and hidden for years, constantly looking over their shoulders. Your mother left this for you, Tasha said, handing her a yellowed envelope. She made us promise to give it to you only if someone from the Reynolds family appeared. With shaking hands, Zoe began reading. My dear Zoe, if you're reading this, someone has found you. There are things you must know. At Thomas's apartment, Johnson called again. Sir, someone else is investigating Bright Horizons. A journalist named Sophia Carter. What does she know? Quite a lot. And she has a theory about why your father was interested in specific children at the home, particularly children with unusual abilities. The next day, a black SUV parked in front of Zoe's school. Two men in suits watched as she left with friends. Is that her? The girl with the sapphire pendant? Yes. Mr. Reynolds Sr. wants to see her immediately. What they didn't know was that Marcus was parked across the street. He took out his phone and dialed a number Elaine had left for emergencies. Sophia Carter. It's about Bright Horizons, Marcus said. And a girl with a sapphire pendant. I found the evidence you're seeking. At Reynolds Industries, Thomas confronted his father, Richard, who had flown in from Arizona unexpectedly. What's this about reviewing the Bright Horizons documents? Richard demanded. I thought that matter was settled. I found Zoe Williams, Dad, the girl with the sapphire pendant. Richard paled. So what? Just another orphan. What matters is Project Pinnacle. Billions are at stake. What was so special about that girl? Richard laughed coldly. Don't you really comprehend what's involved? Some children are valuable. They possess talents that can be exploited. She repairs things, Thomas said slowly. She can examine broken machines and just understand them. Richard's smile was icy. Consider the military applications, the patents, the advantage. Why do you think we acquired that children's home? What neither Reynolds realized was that Zoe was already reading Elaine's letter, discovering the truth about her past and her special abilities, and more importantly, learning why the sapphire pendant was so valuable. It wasn't merely jewelry, but a key to documents that could bring down an empire. The puzzle pieces were coming together. On one side, a powerful corporation ready to protect its secrets at any price. On the other, a 10-year-old girl with an extraordinary talent and a pendant worth far more than its gemstone. Between them, a man trying to decide which side of history he wanted to join. The conference room on the 40th floor of Reynolds Industries buzzed with nervous executives. Richard Reynolds had called an emergency meeting, his typically controlled expression now twisted with anger. "Where is my son?" Richard demanded, striking the massive oak table. Thomas should have arrived an hour ago. As if summoned, the double doors opened. Thomas entered calmly, accompanied by a woman in a suit whom no one recognized. "Sorry for my tardiness, Dad," Thomas said with unsettling composure. "This is Federal Prosecutor Rebecca Morgan. She has questions about Project Olympus. Richard's face paled. Project Olympus, the code name for the secret program to identify and exploit children with special abilities. A name never meant for public disclosure, especially not to federal authorities. "What the hell are you doing?" Richard hissed. Thomas approached the large screen on the wall and connected his laptop. "Something I should have done years ago. The truth about Bright Horizons and the other 5 institutions you've closed over the past 15 years. The lights dimmed and the screen displayed documents, photographs, and reports. Detailed records of 48 special children identified, tested, and exploited by Reynolds Industries. "You've stolen confidential files," Richard tried regaining composure. "That's corporate espionage." "Documents proving far worse crimes," Thomas replied. "Unauthorized testing on minors, falsification of adoption records, bribing officials, threatening witnesses." A video began playing. Security footage from 12 years earlier. A young nurse, now known to be Elaine Williams, fleeing during the night with a child in her arms. Next, footage of Richard instructing security personnel. "Find her. The girl has significant military potential. We can't lose her." 3 Bright Horizons employees died in accidents in the weeks that followed. Thomas continued relentlessly, including Elaine's brother, who started asking questions. "You have no concept of the implications," Richard began, but was interrupted when the doors opened again. Zoe Williams entered, accompanied by Uncle Marcus and a woman carrying professional camera equipment, Sophia Carter from the Chicago Tribune. "Zoe," Thomas said softly, "you didn't need to come." "Yes, I did," she replied, with surprising dignity for someone so young. "Elaine always said someday I would need to confront the people who made us run." Richard studied the girl, his expression shifting from shock to cold calculation. "So you're the prodigious Project 17. I didn't expect you'd be so small." "And you're the man who killed my mother," Zoe replied, her gaze unwavering. "Her brakes didn't fail accidentally, did they?" Richard smiled, recovering his confidence. "Proving anything would be impossible. And you're forgetting who I am. One call, and all this vanishes." That's when Zoe opened her backpack and removed the sapphire pendant. With careful fingers, she twisted the stone, revealing a hidden compartment. From inside, she extracted a tiny device. "Elaine was smarter than you thought," she said. "This is a storage drive she concealed in the pendant. It contains backup copies of all Bright Horizons records, including recordings of your meetings with military scientists about utilizing children with enhanced cognitive abilities for strategic applications." Richard Reynolds, for the first time in his life, was speechless. "This is broadcasting live right now," Sophia Carter explained, indicating her camera, "to our studio and directly to social media. Over 10,000 people are already watching." Thomas approached his father, keeping his voice low. "It's over. The prosecutor has offered me a deal. Full cooperation for immunity. As for you, a jury will decide." As federal agents entered to arrest Richard Reynolds, Zoe approached the man who had destroyed so many lives. "My mother taught me that broken machines can be fixed," she said calmly, "but broken people must fix themselves. I hope you get that opportunity in prison." Richard was escorted out, his empire crumbling live for the world to witness. In the days that followed, Reynolds Industries' stock plummeted. Investigations uncovered decades of unethical practices, illegal experimentation, and systematic corruption. Thomas observed it all with mixed relief and regret. He had lost his family and inheritance, but found something more valuable: his integrity. At the courthouse, as Richard awaited his preliminary hearing, Zoe approached Thomas on the steps outside. "What happens now?" she asked, the sapphire pendant gleaming on her neck. no longer representing secrets, but truth revealed. Thomas gazed at the city skyline, at the skyscrapers built with money tainted by exploitation and suffering. Among them, the gleaming Reynolds Building, soon to lose its name. "Now," he said, "we rebuild. Not just buildings, but lives." What none of them could have anticipated was how that rebuilding would transform not just their lives, but an entire community. An empire built on exploitation was falling, but from the ruins, something new and unexpected would emerge, something that would forever change how the world viewed exceptional talent in unexpected places. 5 years passed since Zoe Williams exposed the truth about the Reynolds Empire. On a bright spring morning, she walked through the corridors of the newly established Williams Center for Young Innovators, a comprehensive complex of laboratories, workshops, and classrooms constructed on the same location where Bright Horizons Children's Home once stood. The sensors in the West Wing are still malfunctioning. Zoe, now 15, informed the team of engineers following her. Her practiced eyes identified issues in complex systems with the same ease she had spotted a leak in a Corvette's radiator years earlier. In the rear of the center, Thomas Reynolds conversed with investors, his suit replaced by jeans and a casual shirt. The former millionaire heir had donated his entire personal fortune to establish the Olympus Initiative, no longer an exploitation project, but a program dedicated to identifying talented young people from underserved communities and providing them with opportunities. "We've identified 23 children with exceptional abilities just this quarter," Thomas explained. "Each receives a full scholarship and individualized mentoring. No contracts, no exploitation, no secrets." Thomas's transformation surprised many, especially former executives at Reynolds Industries. The man, once heir to an empire built on exploitation, now dedicated his life to repairing damage and creating genuine opportunities. "Zoe is about to register her third patent," said Marcus, who now managed the center's engineering program. "Harvard, MIT, and Stanford are already competing to recruit her." On the center's main wall, an exhibition documented the entire story. Photographs of the children's home, newspaper articles about the collapse of Reynolds Industries, and a headline that changed everything: "Reynolds Empire Crumbles After Teens' Revelations." Meanwhile, in a medium-security federal prison, Richard Reynolds stared at his cell walls. The magnate who once controlled millions and manipulated lives now spent his days in confinement, abandoned by former allies. His fortune seized, his reputation permanently damaged. "He refuses to join any rehabilitation program," a guard remarked. "He still believes he'll be released and rebuild everything." The arrogance that had been his trademark was now just a sad caricature, an elderly man clinging to dreams of power that would never materialize. That evening, the Williams Center held its first major graduation ceremony. 12 young people from disadvantaged communities had completed the intensive 2-year program, each with job offers or university scholarships secured. Zoe, still too young to graduate but already recognized as a mentor by her older peers, took the stage to deliver a speech. "When I was 10, I fixed a stranger's car beside the road," she began, touching the sapphire pendant on her neck, now a symbol not of secrets, but of transformation. That small act of kindness exposed a system of exploitation, but also created something new and better. Thomas watched from the auditorium's rear, his eyes moist. The girl who had dismantled his old world had, in fact, given him a purpose no fortune could purchase. "My adoptive mother, Elaine, used to say that broken machines can be fixed, but broken systems need to be redesigned from scratch," Zoe continued. "That's what we're accomplishing here. Not just repairing what was wrong, but building something entirely new." The following day, Zoe received an unexpected letter. The sender, Jennifer Reynolds, Richard's daughter, who had renounced her family name after the scandal and now worked as a federal prosecutor. "We've located 5 more children's homes with programs similar to Bright Horizons," the letter read. "Thanks to your testimony and the evidence you provided, we've been able to identify and protect 37 more children. Some have talents like yours. When you're ready, they'd love to meet you." As Zoe read the letter to Thomas, Uncle Marcus, and Aunt Tasha, a sense of closure permeated the air. What began with a chance roadside encounter had become a quiet revolution, transforming not only their lives, but an entire system that had thrived on exploiting the vulnerable. "You know what's ironic?" Thomas said. "Richard always claimed he was creating a legacy. And he truly did, just not how he imagined." Zoe looked out the window at children playing in the center's gardens, free from the manipulation that had nearly determined her own fate. "True power was never in buildings or bank accounts," she replied. "It was in the ability to impact other people's lives." That evening, as sunset bathed the Williams Center, a new sign was unveiled at the entrance. "Every talent deserves to flourish. Every child deserves freedom." It was a promise for the future built upon the ruins of a past they refused to repeat. If this story of justice, perseverance, and transformation moved you, please subscribe to our channel for more stories about how small acts of courage can transform entire systems, and how true redemption isn't just about punishing wrongdoing, but about creating something better in its place.